Welcome to TransParents. Once again, if you didn't catch our little note and you don't know this, and you didn't catch this yesterday, there was a last minute switch up. We talked about bringing Rosemary back in 2 weeks, and Hallie unfortunately had gotten the dates mixed up. And so at last minute, I hit Jenny up last night and was like, hey, can Rosemary do tomorrow? So yeah, we just kind of flipped weeks, if you will. So Rosemary is back. We didn't
We're
finish
so
her topic
flexible.
last week. Right. And we kind of talked, actually, when we got off air, we spent like another hour in studio and just felt like this was something that we needed to come back, that we need to give Rosemary more time to continue sharing her story. And so, yeah, that this is, I guess we could have called it Rosemary Part Two, but either way, we now have it all right. Dr. Diana is here. Welcome. Good evening, Dr. Diana.
Dr.
Um,
Diana is a
so
great
this is my
resource.
co-host, right? She's a very great resource. I didn't get any of this out. So she, her pronouns. If you're on TikTok following us, when I post these at night, you can find me at Moonchild77. And then I'll let my co-host introduce herself and then let our guests introduce themselves. So that, yeah.
Hi, I am Jenny, and my pronouns are she, her. And you can find me on TikTok at translovingmama.
I'm Rosemary, she, her pronouns also, and I still don't remember my TikTok username, so I'm not on there right now. So
Don't worry about it. Jenny really kind of cranked me into it because she had such a large following. She was like, this would be another avenue for us to really be able to speak to about trans rights, right? And there's a lot more
absolutely.
younger people on TikTok as far as social media within this community. And we just felt like this was another way that we could speak to them as well. So when Jenny broached it, I was like, I really didn't want to be on TikTok because my kids are like, you're old. Why are you on
Oh yeah, they
TikTok?
make fun of me constantly. Like
You will
they
notice if you ever
shame
go through my
me.
stuff, my children are not on mine. They are
Yeah,
not
no,
on mine for a
mine
reason. They don't
shame
follow
me.
me. Nothing. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Because if they're anything like
They
mine, might be
shame
like, why
me.
did you post that? Why would you do that,
Yeah,
Mom?
I'm like,
Yeah.
worry
So
about yourself. Why would you dress like that? I mean,
right.
cut your hair.
Ooh.
So let's
Dr. Diana's
unfair.
book will be available November 1st.
I am so excited for your book, Dr. Diana. I cannot
Right.
even tell you. They are going to be some Christmas gifts for some of my family members if I can get them on time. If not, they're just going to get them anyway. But I had
Right.
actually spoken to Rosemary about Dr. Diana at one point because she does have an adolescent who
Mm-hmm.
is, kind of gender questioning, identifies as transgender, but we are, it can be such a different thing for somebody with such a younger child to navigate than it was for like Amber and I, who our kids were older when they came out, and it's a little easier to kind of hand those kids the reins and say,
Yep.
I trust you to know who you are. Cool. I'll just support you. When you have a young child, an adolescent, it's a whole nother ball game. You're talking dealing with the schools, and you're talking dealing with doctors in different ways. There's just more challenges, I imagine, I assume, that come up, and we'll talk about probably some of that tonight. But I know we've got to, yeah.
Well, I just figured we'll let Rosemary run with it. What she felt like she wanted to share last week that she didn't get the chance to. And we'll just kind of build from there. Because really, that is what last week and this week are. We want everybody to know that we don't we do bring Dr. Diane on. We do talk about like facts and stats and reports. But at the same time, we also want to talk about the actual human experiences. That's what Jenny and I bring every week, is to try and translate what we've gone through so you get an idea. And we know that Rosemary is not the only parent of a child that is questioning. We know she's not the only parent that has to go out there and question the school, fight back, push back against the school, push back about healthcare, push back about anything really that relates to being able to truly support and advocate for her child. And so this doesn't just affect the kids, this affects the parents as well. It's a much bigger impact than a lot of people want to own.
Well, I think that's too the point of Dr. Diana's book, and why I'm so excited, because she always says no one transitions alone, and I absolutely
Nope.
love that she says that, because she's right. It becomes this family and community experience, and that's another reason I'm just so excited, to read that, is to really gain
Have
more
you seen the
perspective on that.
comments I've thrown up here? This is book number 3. Book
I
number 2
mean,
is on the way to the publisher.
Wow.
that's
Okay.
amazing.
She sat down with me and was like, if you did this with your transcript and you worked on this a couple of hours a day, Dr. Diane, I'll be perfectly honest, it's ADD brain. I got all my transcripts out and had like 900 pages, and I was going to have to add probably at minimum 500 sources. I will be stripping it down to my voice. I'm not looking to do 50,000 sources. Like, I don't mind referencing back to certain people and referencing to podcast numbers, like, hey, go back and check this episode. But
Yeah.
I don't really want to be like, here's this. Because you think about it, some of the reports that we've done, like when I start throwing out stats across the US, like some of those I
Oof.
pulled like
Yeah.
50. Shoot, there were some episodes I had 200 articles, and I would just cut it down to the
Yes.
main 15 and share those resources because I wasn't
Right.
going to like kill our audience with 200 resources for an hour-long show. That's not the point. The point was to get the most accurate stats to give you the most information
Right.
without you having to go out and resource it. But I don't want to put all that in my book.
I just want to point out how incredible that is, though, because you have no idea how many like podcasts, YouTube channels, whatever shows are out there, and people will just tell you something, and other people are consuming that content as if it's fact, and there's no resources. So
Right.
I personally am super grateful for that.
I mean, and I do. Like, if we talk about something like tonight, there aren't any. And that's because I really wanted to focus on Rosemary's story. We have covered before in the past on this show about, and you'll hear about some of this tonight, about LGBT affirming groups that are now suddenly trying to push back against trans people and push trans out of the conversation.
Right.
And we have talked about this before. And so, being Rosemary had personal experience with it, we definitely wanted to have that conversation. And I've got so many people. Wow. Okay. Holy cow, finally made it one of these again.
Hi, welcome.
Cooper, I don't know why. I will say we changed this one last minute last night. So, and I did send you an invite. I don't know why I didn't notify you though. Who knows? Yeah, I try. If you get alerted, you get alerted. Just set your
Yeah.
alarm, Cooper. 7 o'clock Sunday nights. And
Notifications
for you,
are so finicky.
for him, I think that's 4 o'clock. So just set your alarm for 4, Coop. There's no way you can miss it. So yeah. With that being said, Rosemary, where do you want to start? I know last week you talked some about the healthcare experiences. I don't know if that was where you wanted to start first, or if you wanted to start on the community part. Like anywhere you want to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of reference last week, it just it's a really interesting experience, constantly having to vet places and make sure that they're going to be a safe place for my child. It's a weird thought to have, like to make an appointment, because it really slips my mind. A lot of the time I have to call places back because I'll make an appointment for him. I'm not thinking anything of it. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I have to, make
Mm-hmm.
sure that they're going to be kind, like make sure that they are aware that I am expecting them to, treat him with respect.
Right.
And it's just a weird thought that that's even necessary, because I don't I don't think that I would need to be told specifically to treat somebody with kindness, or to, call them by the name that they've chosen, and the pronouns that they are comfortable using, and have asked me to use. I can't imagine not respecting that. Um, and so we have had some experiences where they have kind of refused, or they've said, well, we can't, we've got to say this name or whatever. And so he's really great about, um, we usually have a pep talk before we go to new appointments, and it'll be, they're probably going to call you the wrong name. They're probably going to call you the wrong pronouns. I'm so sorry that you have to experience that. Please know that they're not trying to, it's the whole spiel every time. He's like, I know, it's fine. I think it maybe it doesn't, but it bothers me a lot. It seems like it rolls off his back pretty well. And it's just, he's used to it, and I hate that he's used to it. So a lot of that is why I felt more comfortable reaching out in the community group than just going straight to his doctor and saying, hey, how do we start this process? We've been talking about puberty blockers, and he's really interested. How do we start this process? I I didn't feel comfortable asking his doctor. I'm kind of on the fence about getting a new doctor for him. So I just wasn't really sure. And I thought that it would be a good idea to go into our local queer Facebook group and ask there, hey, can you guys point me in the direction? This is my situation. This is what we've been talking about. What do I need to do? What steps do I need to take? And it's funny because last week, Jenny said, like, I was something to the effect of trying to get ahead of the curve or something like that. Like, and it's funny because I did not feel that way. I felt like, oh crap, this is happening fast. I've got to figure it out. Like, I've got to make a plan, got to figure it out. And it's because he asks me at least once a week about puberty blockers and about puberty and about, all of these questions. And so it just kind of keeps it in the forefront of, God, I have to figure this
Well, it
out.
sounds like his fear of he he does not look forward to what could happen, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
we know that as the years have progressed, that puberty is kind of happening at earlier and earlier stages now. So I don't think it's inappropriate at all for him to question that. I've
Yeah.
told people this before. Like my son, way before he ever developed anything up top, was looking at gender neutral surgery, top surgeries, like before he ever even developed breast. So it's
Mhm.
not, to me, it's definitely not uncommon for kids to question this because they're fearing, are they going to now be like they're trying to live who they are, and that's going to
Right.
bring into question this person that they are
Yep.
this identity that they are trying to create for themselves, that
Mhm.
live into, and that's going to suddenly skew what that identity is.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that probably is always, unfortunately, a little bit on his mind, and some
Yeah.
of the pushback from the school already is making him question that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want people to question this, so that hopefully they'll leave me alone. I can just live my life.
Mhm.
Right. And it is the one thing that I genuinely wish I could had that we had known that any of this was in the forefront of our minds, that we'd had an inkling, because it's something I absolutely would have done for my son. Because then you're looking at, so before he really came out, he was already starting to use things to try to smash down his chest.
Yep.
And because I didn't know yet, even though I'm affirming and, yes, like, how can I help you? Because I didn't know that, he's going behind my back and doing it. And some of the ways that they will like wrap or tape down
It's
isn't safe.
dangerous.
It can cause mastitis. It can cause, lots of other issues. They don't know how long to leave that stuff on for. Now, it's quite possible that he already really had a community and was able to find that information out, because we know that kids are growing up in a technological age where they can get answers and they have community built that we don't even know about.
Right.
And but still, even within communities, when you've got young people, you're really talking about inexperience trying to lead inexperience, rather
Right.
than, some better guidance there. And I wish I could do that for him, because now, it's binders and it's talking about major
Expensive top
surgery.
surgery, right? Top surgery. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the same thing
And
as
I
my
wish we
son.
could have done it.
He's been wearing binders now for, oh, geez,
Oh, thank you, Dr.
15,
Diana.
15
You
years.
gave us
Yeah.
some
These are some
WPATH
people in
members in
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Okay, thank you. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
What?
We will look at that afterwards.
Yeah, in the comments.
Thank you.
These are doctors
Awesome.
specific for WPATH in Oklahoma, close
Oh
to
my
you,
gosh.
for you to look
Awesome.
at. So
Thank you
yeah,
so
so definitely
much.
check out the
Awesome.
comments after this, Jenny, so y'all can get all that information. She
Absolutely.
also added Brant McCall, MD, internal medicine,
So
family
these
practice,
are all
primary
safe
care. So
doc.
again,
Yes.
these are,
Okay.
yes,
Awesome.
yes, very much so,
Amazing.
very much so.
Thank you.
So that gives you some
Awesome.
sources you can start tracking down. But like
Yeah.
I guess because I didn't have a young child, like he was definitely looking at surgery, but because mine wasn't telling me this is how I feel, I knew he was bonding. Like I knew he was uncomfortable with that, but even then he wasn't coming out and saying this is what I am. He really didn't decide that until he was a senior, or actually not even a senior, until he was a freshman in college. Um, and I wish I had known those things, that I could have, like the same thing as Jenny, like prevented this fact that he's going to need a much more, like it may not have kept him from not having surgery at all, but what he's going to have to go through now is much more invasive compared to what it possibly could have been for him. And he's been bonding. He's almost 27. He's been bonding now for 14, 15 years
Yeah.
minimum.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I definitely get that there's that disconnect because he didn't, like, I didn't have to worry about, like, I do remember that when he started questioning some things, I was already talking to my pediatrician, like, hey, he's looking at these surgeries. It's okay. All right. When he came out, I called him. What do I do? What are you doing? And I kind of explained, and he's like, you're good. If he's got questions, send him in.
Yeah.
I mean, they were very, very, very kind, very accommodating. We never had to worry about that.
That's really
But
great.
now
Cool.
that
Really
he's an
lucky.
adult and he's looking at where do I go for primary care, he goes to Planned Parenthood. And that's like the only place he trusts currently because we have very red areas here.
Yeah.
The dentist. He made an appointment with his dentist, but he's like, oh crap, now I need to call back and make sure, are they like queer friendly, like all these different, like, do you have to go get your hair cut? If you go get your hair cut, that was one of his major things. Like,
Yeah.
he's going to a men's barber shop. Is he going to be looked at? Is he going to be judged when he walks in the door? And so my middle son typically goes with him to all of these places. So in other words, it's like a big, well, it's not big brother, but it's like little brother, don't mess with my brother kind of deal.
Yeah.
So mom isn't actually going into these appointments and going to these places. It's him and his brother doing it, right? But again, I can kind of see where that might actually help him a little bit blend in a little better. Like them coming in with their beards and nobody's all any wiser, right? Because my son is, I mean, full on. He looks like he's got a lion's mane practically. I mean, big beard. Big beard.
Oh, Jesse wishes. There's no chance. Not with his dad's genes. There's no chance.
My trans son
Bless
has
his heart.
more of a beard than my son.
Well, good for him. Yeah,
Mhm.
Jesse has no hope.
Now,
His
I
father
will
is
say their
like
hair
all
color
out.
makes a difference because the oldest has
Yeah.
my hair color, and the younger, my middle son has like, I guess it's probably going to like maybe a darker blonde, but he was a blonde. And so his hair is much so the beard hair is like blonde and almost this reddish tint. So that doesn't fill in and look as
Yeah.
full really as like a dark hair, someone with dark
Yeah.
hair. And so I think my older son kind of gets away with that a little bit more because he's got the dark hair that fills it all in. But yeah, like the two of them, they're just like, what? How? What? And they'll
Yeah.
be in there like, my whiskers are starting to tip on my lip. Tell me how to trim this. And so they'll like be in there kind of like guiding each other. Did I get my
That's so
back of my
sweet.
hairline straight? Like they really are tit for tat that way. And I love that
Yeah.
because he's not coming to me for
And
my
Aiden's
mom.
gonna have a big brother for.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I shouldn't have said his name. Sorry. We are gonna. What should we start calling your son on here for? Just like a filler name. Let's find a cool like boy name, like George. Any Georges out there? We love you.
Right? Right?
So in this quest for her, to try to get some answers, she turned to our like local Facebook community and our queer community, which by the way was created by a non-binary individual like in our town, just an amazing person. They are no longer with us, sadly, because that's what all this garbage does, to people like them. And she was met with some pushback, which, I really wanted to get on and scream, but instead I just typed it out and showed her what I wanted to say, and then I stopped because I didn't want to create a problem. I do like to create problems, but it was just odd. It was something I'm sure she didn't expect. I certainly didn't expect it. I did not expect to see that. And it just goes to show that all of those things that are so ingrained by especially predominantly people on one side of the political spectrum still exist within the queer community. That there's that fear, there's that uncertainty, there's that instant you hear like, oh, this kid's 8. Well, what are you thinking? Like you're gonna do this. And Rosemary
Right.
was never saying, I'm doing this tomorrow.
Right.
She was saying, I'm trying to figure this out. My head is spinning out of control. I need some
guidance was what I asked for.
Like,
guidance and insight was what I asked for, and I was.
I mean, I think it's what parents are mostly looking for, is it not? Because we're like,
right.
Unless we're trans ourselves, and we don't know that experience for them.
Right.
We don't
Yeah.
know what that's like.
And that's exactly what I said too.
Right.
Like, that was why it was so surprising, the response that I got. And so it was basically met with, there was one specific, well, there were two people who took an immediate issue with my post. And again, I pretty much was just like, I am not trans, so I only understand a little bit. If this is the, here's the details. I'm just looking for resources, for doctors that I can trust, for, therapists that I can trust, things like that. And guidance on, how to go about these things. I know that especially right now, puberty blockers might not be easy to get. And that's really my biggest fear, is that it's not going to be accessible. So I'm trying to find out, how can I access this? How, I wasn't saying, hey, I'm going to go send off my kid into surgery tomorrow.
Right.
And the person who was the most upset was, I want to say around 19 or 20, pretty young, which made a lot of sense to me that there wasn't a lot of regulation in the emotions there. It was like, they just, not saying that about all 20 and 21 year olds, but just reflecting on myself at that age. Anyway.
I wasn't like, I wasn't willing to listen to anybody at 21. I knew best.
Right.
So
I think I know everything, and I'm hot-headed to boot.
Exactly. And so they just came in, just keyboard blazing, just, what are you doing? Why are you don't even know what you're talking about, and you're trying to, I may have even used the word mutilate. I can't even remember, but they were very aggressive in their,
and
like,
wasn't it a trans
terminology.
person?
It was a trans, yes, it was a trans person as well. And I have since talked to some people about that, and some insight that I got was, potentially there's a fear in the that age of people in our community who, that they might have that fear of, like, well, if we start pushing for things for kids too young, then maybe they'll take it away from us. I think you said that too. That like scarcity complex mindset type of thing.
Right.
Well, we can't give this too much attention, because then we can't have it. And I understand that, but also, I just can't imagine, I can't believe, I guess, that this person wasn't able to stop for just a half a second and be like, wow, like, what if I had been able to access this information at 8 years
or
old?
been supported, or my parents were supportive of me and were looking for this information, right? Like, I mean,
absolutely.
Who was it that came out? Shoot, I can't remember his name. Jonathan. I wrote an article about it last year. It's from Queer Eye.
Oh yeah.
But Jonathan had come out and gone on Dak Shepard's show, and Dak Shepard had really said some things that I felt like were inappropriate. And it was kind of like, here is and like Jonathan's response was like, what if I had been able to get support as a kid? Do you have any clue what that would have done for me?
Right.
And not in a negative way, but in a positive way, for his mental health, to avoid substance abuse issues, because he was burying his pain. And I just think that a lot of people want to, like, not sugarcoat this, but they want to make it it's this one thing. And it's not. It's a lot of things. And this is very impactful if you've got a young child who is already questioning all these things. Like, we had older children.
Right.
My son was an adult.
And it seems more palatable, socially palatable that way. When we start talking about adults accessing gender affirming care, you can get a lot more people from that side of the aisle to go, well, I mean, they're adults.
Okay.
I don't really care what they do with their own body. Why is that my business? But their issue is always kids. And hey, that's amazing. We should care if children are being experimented on medically. We should care if children are being mutilated. By the way, why are you circumcising your children if you're worrying about them being mutilated? We should care about the mental health of children. I'm on board. We're all on board with that. But when we don't talk about this, and when we don't go, this is real, this is facing children too, then we just kind of keep that there. And then parents like Rosemary are continue to face that backlash because all we've said is, oh, it's somehow acceptable for adults. Well, guess what? Trans adults were trans kids. They might not have said it. They might not have had the words for it, but they were. And again, it isn't about like putting our children under the knife. It isn't about pumping them full of hormones.
It's support.
About something like puberty blockers is just a pause. It's just that cisgender kids, by the way, have been doing for decades. All the time. Without nobody's batted an eyelash. Nobody has said, well, I mean, why wouldn't you want your 8-year-old to have ginormous, honkers? And
look at what Dr. Diana put up there.
It says intersex
What did we find out from our first podcast, Jenny? What did we find out from our first podcast? That they were training medical doctors here in the U.S. that if you were being trained in the U.S. and you had an intersex child that was born, they were
almost all assigned female.
And the reason why they made it because it was simpler.
It's easier to.
It was simpler to do their surgery than it was to create a penis.
Yeah.
And then you wondered why we had these decades of children who were coming out saying, I don't match this body because somebody else had made that decision for them.
Yeah. In college, I mean, that was over. God dang, that was over 25 years ago. And I remember learning about it in there. And, it was this feminist class that I took. And, but that information just isn't, you've got to go looking for it. And a certain group of people aren't going to seek real information that might validate a point that they don't like. They're not seeking that out. They're not going to, so to be able to get that to them in some more ready way. But I agree with Rosemary. It was just really disheartening to see that from, not only a trans person, but just knowing that exists within the queer community at all is so bizarre. I'm a queer woman. Rosemary's a queer woman. And it just doesn't, I don't even understand it. Mm-hmm. But I do think a lot of it can be based in that fear, exactly like she said, of, well, if I'm okay with this, and we know that this is the hot topic about it, right? Like it's the kids. And it's almost like well, if you do that, you're going to make it harder for me. Mm-hmm. You're feeding into their issues. And it's like, I'm not feeding into their issues. This is something I'm dealing with. And I need help.
It's like a piece of the pie mentality, right? Like
right.
If you get more rights, then you take some of my rights. But that's not how it works
at all.
We can all have rights.
Everybody can have rights.
We should all have rights to healthcare, the healthcare that we need.
Right. And at least to be able to have a good conversation about it, because if anybody would come to her or me or any, when you've got a kid and say, hey, I know that you're concerned about this. I hear you. I'm listening to you, but we're not going to worry about this right now. Or I'm not sure that this is the right way to go because it can cause this or that or that. But that doesn't start if as soon as you ask a question, somebody attacks you and tells you you're just a terrible parent.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, we go into shutdown mode because we don't want somebody attacking our kids. So why are we going to continue to have that conversation? But I do think I am like you, Rosemary. I'm baffled on the pushback of like, it's perfectly okay for trans adults, but we're against kids that feel this way, because I talk about this just in mental health care. If you have children who are going through mental health issues and they aren't being supported, they grow up into adults who are still struggling with mental health issues. Mm-hmm. If you have a trans kid who's a kid, they grow up into a trans adult. So why wouldn't we start supporting them before they turn 18? Right. Are we trying to do more damage? Like, this is a a big one that just irks me.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it's kind of interesting the way that it connects to the stuff with the school, right? And like all of it is connected, but the way that it's connecting for me is a little different in that our society just expects children to not really be humans. You know what I mean? Grown-ups don't treat kids as humans. Grown-ups expect kids to just be seen and not heard, to just listen, to be obedient, to do all the things that us grown-ups have to do and sometimes really struggle with. I haven't seen grown-ups deal with their emotions as well as I've seen some kids, you know,
Right?
or as well as I've seen them expect kids to deal with their
Absolutely.
emotions, right? And
Absolutely.
so I think that transfers over into the trans topic because, well, how can a kid know who they are? You know, how can a kid who has been encouraged to express themselves however they're most comfortable, how can they possibly know who they are? Grown-ups can know who they are, but kids cannot. And what I find to be even more interesting about that in my own human experience is that I think I knew who I was more as a kid than I do
Right.
now at 33, right? So
Well, I think
I'm in this
we get
process of like,
jaded. We get
yeah,
jaded
absolutely.
with like, oh, you're not supposed to
Absolutely.
be this, you're not supposed to be that. So by the time we get to adults, we start conforming. And I think if a
Yeah.
kid is coming out early and saying, this is how I am, you should really be listening to that because there's always already an incongruence there. And more than likely, it's just going to continue. And a lot of times we
Absolutely.
want to like brush it under the rug, oh, ignore it, they'll outgrow it. And that's not supporting your kid either by just
No.
saying, oh, we'll just let them
Right.
spin out on it and then eventually they'll figure themselves out. That's not what support looks like. Support is
And this
being there with your
idea
kid.
that, like, oh, well, they might change their mind. Well, they might. I mean, I'm not the person I was, 8 years ago. I'm not the person I was 20 years ago. I've evolved. I've changed my mind on some major issues. I've changed my mind on the way I want to live. I've changed my mind about a lot of things. It's not something that generally happens. It's something like 2 or whatever percent. It's abysmally low. We know that mind, if there's that changing your mind, it generally happens because of how the rest of society is and the pushback they get and how difficult it is on them. But if that happens, like, we'll just walk through that together too. We'll get through it, whatever it is. But thinking that the kids don't have the right to change their minds, to grow and evolve, to have regrets about what they do. Everybody has that right.
And I mean, here's the thing: if you take puberty blockers and you regret it, stop taking the puberty blockers.
Just stop taking
like,
them.
I'm not, like I said, I'm not signing my kid up for surgeries tomorrow to, do which he asks about it all the time. Like you talked about, like he
Right.
is already, he's asking questions about what is bottom surgery? What's that process look like? I'm very interested. Like he's like, this is something I'm interested in. And so I give him the information and I tell him that's not really something we're going to be looking at right now, but I'm happy to find all the information with you. This is the first step. This is, and I've kind of put it
Right.
into steps for him. Like, this is kind of the way that this will kind of happen. And a lot of it'll really be what you want, but while you're
Right.
a kid, this is what we're dealing with.
And there is
Let's
no
see.
way. I just don't believe in a million years that he's going to make it to 18 years old like this if this is not who he truly is. You're just not going to. Nobody can
No.
hold on to a fad or a phase that long. For what? Like, just to prove something? She's angry. She's angry. She's so relatable, though.
Have you fed her? Have you fed her? Is she
No.
hangry?
Nope, I forgot to feed them before I did this. So they're
She's
all
hangry.
the dogs
She's
have been with us
hangry.
on the couch because they're super pissed that I did not.
Okay, Dr. Diana gave us quite a bit, so let me put this up here. So puberty blockers are medications that temporarily stop puberty by blocking the production of sex hormones like estrogen and testosterone. They can be used to treat precocious puberty when children develop puberty-related characteristics before the typical age. They can also be used to help trans children and their caregivers consider their options. All right, puberty blockers, also called puberty inhibitors or hormone blockers, are medicines used to postpone puberty in children. The most commonly used I can't speak tonight, puberty blockers are are the GnRH agonists. That's where I'm going with that, which suppresses natural process or production of sex hormones such as androgens and estrogens. Puberty blockers are used to delay puberty in children with precocious puberty. They also are used to delay the development of unwanted secondary sex characteristics. The use of puberty blockers is supported by 12 major American medical associations, including the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association, and the American Academy of Pediatrics. In Australia, four medical organizations support them, as does the Endocrine Society and the World Professional Association of Transgender Health WPATH, which we've discussed here before. The United Kingdom has implemented a ban on prescribing puberty blockers to new patients under age 18, because I have seen that part too. And then puberty blockers are sometimes prescribed to young trans children or people with gender dysphoria to temporarily halt the development of secondary sex characteristics. Puberty blockers are intended to allow patients more time to solidify their gender identity and give them a smoother transition into their desired gender identity as an adult. If a child later decides not to transition to another gender, the medication can be stopped, allowing puberty to proceed. And this last part, puberty blocking is reversible, because I do know that we had some scientists that went overseas and did saying that this was not, that they questioned this and that. The Dutch protocol was the first example of the use of puberty blockers to treat gender dysphoria in children. It was developed by Peggy Cohen Kentenus in the 1990s. The statement was made that the treatment was fully reversible, and a study of 70 children showed evidence that it had an overall positive outcome for those who were treated. A number of subsequent studies appeared to support this treatment as safe and effective at delaying development of secondary sexual characteristics. And so again, like, this is here to help kids. It's not to hurt kids. It's to give them
Right.
longer so they can make this choice for themselves. They can figure out these questions that they have. And I
Right.
think if you just shut them down and say, don't question, you're doing
Right.
way
What are
more
we- like,
damage.
what are we teaching
You're
our
doing way
kids?
more damage. Like the mental health damage
Yeah.
alone, telling your kid to shut down, not to think that way, bury that. You're asking for way more trouble later. Instead of saying, okay, we'll give them a little extra time to figure out what's best for them.
Yeah.
I don't
And that's-
see I really don't see the issue that people have when Jenny and I have talked about, like, we both were on hormone. I was on hormone at 12 because I had really heavy periods. So I was on hormones. Like,
I was on hormones at 14. It's called birth control.
right?
Yeah. And that's what I thought was so funny too, is that puberty blockers are literally to put a pause and give more time, right? And so I was being accused of jumping into, right, and just hitting the
Right.
ground running, and I'm like, no, I'm literally asking about puberty blockers, which give us more time to understand, more time to really know what our options are, and more time to, for him to know for sure what he is wanting to do on his path moving forward. So it was such a weird experience. I was like, you clearly don't know anything about puberty blockers if you're taking that to mean that I'm jumping right into something. Because
Well,
that's literally the
Dr.
opposite.
Diana puts it up here. Puberty blockers have been used since the 1960s. The 1960s. So again, here we go back to that stat of, but this is new and kids have just started talking about it in the last few years. Again, it's been used for precocious puberty since the 60s. This is not new.
Absolutely.
It's just now it's being used to affirm people and
Right.
not to control.
And
just
that's their bigger problem.
That's
They
their problem.
they don't want it. It's okay for
Before-
us. It's not okay for them.
Yep.
We talked about the biggest set of minors or adolescents that are having top surgery are boys. And they're having it because they have I can't even think of the right name for it, the medical terminology, but it's where they're building excess breast tissue.
Right.
And that's affecting their mental health. So they can have
Because
surgery.
It doesn't affirm their gender. So that surgery
for them.
affirms their gender.
My friend at 16 who
always
had been
fine for
burned,
this person
who had
to
been
do it.
burned as a child. She had one breast, the other one because of being burned in the tub as like an infant,
Wow.
toddler, had never developed. And so her parents for her 16th birthday were like, do you want a car or do you want a breast? And she was like, I want a breast.
That's how important it was to her.
Mm-hmm.
That's how important it was to her because
Because it impacted
out
this.
every day, and it impacts this absolutely. Whenever Jesse experienced menses, that was such a weird. I just did not. I had no idea. Of course, this is a couple years before he came out. I had no idea that the stress that was causing. I saw that it upset him, And I thought, well, I mean, nobody likes getting their period, right? So I just did not realize that that's what was going on. But to have been able to even avoid that stress, imagine what it's like for somebody who, he has such a thick skin and he's really good about advocating for himself. But I just can't imagine a young trans man being at school. And we've been there. The three of us know what happens when you you can't change a pad in between classes, or it starts out of nowhere. And when you first start your period, it's so unpredictable. It's not
Right.
like every 28 days, it's like, surprise. And it's messy and it's embarrassing. No matter how secure you are in yourself, having
Right.
that on your pants or leaving it in a seat in your classroom, it's embarrassing. And if we can help people not go through that, especially for like a young man, that would be even more embarrassing. So we're
Right.
trying to help these kids lead just regular, plain, non-exciting lives.
Right.
Just
That's
want them to have
all.
non-exciting
Just
lives.
have normal anxiety, not
Right.
anxiety that,
Right.
you're going to be outed by your body or,
Right.
like, I don't know.
I'm going to look at this
I was going to say,
one. I have
this
to
is
get
one of
Rose to put
her,
it on.
this is one of her episodes. This is for the July 29th, 2024, was on neurobiology, genetics, and hormonal anomalies on gender identity in this episode. And
We got an
the
episode on it.
neurobiology, we brought her on to talk about the neurobiology again, because it's just to go to show people this is not, we didn't just come up with this.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
No.
People aren't just turning trans. People didn't just start turning gay.
No.
We're not asking, I've said this to so many people, you don't have to believe in it. You do not have to believe in it. But you
I mean,
shouldn't
you're
be able,
dumb.
but I don't, well, I mean,
It's
I'd
like,
like
I
you
don't
to
believe in
it.
redheads. Like, I don't believe in autism. Like, what are you talking about? Okay, well, it's there.
I guess my thing is what I mean is they cannot understand it all they want,
Right.
as long as they're not getting in the way of somebody else having
understand it.
access. That's it.
Absolutely.
That's it.
That's it.
I don't care if you don't like it. That's fine. But you should
It's not for
understand
you.
that everybody
It's not
has
for
the
you.
right to access, no matter who you are, especially if you're a kid. I don't care if you don't agree with it, but somebody else's child should still be able to get the care that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
we've gotten
and
to this place where you've got to agree with everybody and what they're doing with their kids.
Yeah.
It's no,
You don't.
no, it's not.
You
That's
don't.
between the parent, the kid, and their doctor. That's it. None of the rest of us matter. Our opinions
and
don't matter.
I find it really interesting that people want to say they're trying to protect children and that, trans children are being taught to say these things by their parents and it's the parents are the devils and stuff like that. Because here's the thing, I get told all the time that I am so like gentle with my children and like passive with, like, I get called passive. All these things. And I don't care, because at the end of the day, I'm parenting my children coming from like my own childhood trauma and trying to like heal that through my parenting, right? And so that's really where a lot of this ties in together. Is just I'm just trying to be a good human and pass down as little trauma as possible to them, right? So it's funny though, the people that are so quick to be like, oh, we got to protect this kid, their parent is turning them trans, blah blah blah, but they go home and berate their children or hit their children or otherwise traumatize their children, and I'm like, worry about your own kids, buddy.
Right.
Mine
Right.
are fine.
Take them somewhere
Right.
every Sunday that tells them they were born inherently bad, that there is only one way to be good, that they're going to burn this, that they're going to, just bizarre.
And I'm not here to make
Bizarre.
comparisons, but the comparisons are making themselves. And all I'm saying is just don't worry about what's good, because all I'm doing is affirming my child. All I'm doing is
Right.
supporting my child. And like, when I think about it, I don't think that me having a trans kid is such a like revolutionary concept. Like, I don't think it's some crazy concept to be a parent and affirm your child and say, oh, this is who you are. Thank you so much for showing me. Let's move forward. But it is to a lot of people, right? Like a lot of people are like, holy cow, like you just moved on. And I'm like, yeah, like what would I do? And be like, no, you're not. That's not who you are.
But there's a
Maureen
lot of
comments.
do exactly that.
Yep. Maureen comments. I remember people telling me that this was all my fault and that I was a bad mother to allow my child to transition. I don't speak to certain family members, because honest to
Yep.
God, they would say the same thing. Honestly, Maureen, I had people who like deleted me as family member, as like deleted me from Facebook, blocked me from Facebook because I spoke about women's reproductive rights and
Yeah.
that we should be able to make
Goodness.
choices for our uteruses. And like
Yeah.
that got
Oh,
me canceled with family.
Bye-bye.
Can you imagine if they knew about my trans kid?
yeah.
Which they
Oh,
don't, for
I was
this
told
very
my son is
reason.
this
Like
way
you,
because I'm a leftist, and he's this way because, I'm like, you've got to be kidding. He grew up in a very cis hetero. I mean, I'm hetero
same
passing, cis hetero,
conservative,
like, right, just this very heteronormative world. He only saw cisgender people on all of the media we ever, consumed. He only saw this, and he's still like that. So I don't. Okay,
right?
I guess I did a spell.
You did.
I did a spell.
You just over while he was sleeping. Yeah.
You know what it was? It was because my husband wanted a son for his first child so bad that we willed it into it.
You're welcome.
We just manifested. It is my ex-husband's fault.
Not that it's a fault.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh,
It's
check
our
this
fault.
out. So Dr. Diana will have her interview with Maureen Murray, who's in our audience tonight.
Yes.
It'll be on October 21st. That's
Can't wait.
awesome.
Wow.
Paradoxes of Gender. Rosemary, if you don't know about that podcast, that's Dr. Diana's podcast.
Okay,
And
fine.
in fact, she's been putting out recent episodes of where she was on our show and we did the gender affirming for prepubescent and adolescent and then mental health podcasts. Like we did 3 weeks in a row with Dr. Diana. And so they've been coming out. She's been publishing them on her podcast as well.
Nice.
Just to kind of, again, put that information out there, because there are so many parents who I think, I didn't have a problem looking for resources. This is kind of the person that I am, especially within the healthcare community. Like, I don't have a problem questioning someone and about why don't you have this access? Where is this access? Like that kind of thing. But there are a lot of people who do. There are a lot of
Right.
parents who don't have a clue where to begin. If their kid comes out and they're like, oh, does this mean we need to go start seeing the endocrinologist and this doctor and that doctor and teams?
Right.
Like, when do I start doing all that? And I think part of that is because there's so much gaslighting around it right now, the rhetoric around it. People are afraid to come out and ask, where do I
For
get this information?
sure.
They don't even know if their doctor is going to attack them for trying to get support
Report
for
them?
their own
Am I going to
kid.
be reported? Am I going to be? Absolutely. It's just a weird feeling. Like, what are you talking about? No, I'm just trying to make sure my kid's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
And especially in, very red states. I mean, it's scary to know what to do at any moment here. I don't even know what I'd do if my daughter was having a miscarriage. I would probably get in the car and drive to Kansas, because heaven forbid we need a schmashmortion. Like, I gotta be where that is. I cannot waste time with doctors here
Right.
who are not going to do what they need to do. I need to get to where we need to go.
Right.
I mean, we would immediately be in the car, hoping she's not bleeding out all the way. It is scarier in these towns and in these communities, because you just know you're met with such different.
Well, not only that,
attitudes.
because of what's being pushed from the state level, right, through the legislation, you've got doctors now who are like, okay, but they could come after me. So then
Right.
they leave. So then
Right.
they leave. So these red areas then
So you have
become
these
healthcare
care deserts.
deserts for people who can't get any access. And not only are like for abortion care, then you're going, okay, now where am I going? Flip through states of what is safe for a kid
Right.
That's
for trans health in the U.S. If y'all don't know, you should follow Aaron Reed. If you're watching the show, Aaron Reed puts out a legislative map, and honestly, it's a safety map of where it's safe for adults and for children, gender diverse. And the youth map is abysmal.
Yeah, I bet it
Mhm.
is. I bet it is.
Yeah. I mean,
It's abysmal.
Yeah, he and I have been talking about our options and stuff, and of course, it's kind of we're like, well, let's wait and see what happens in November, like kind of situation, like see if things are gonna get, which is a whole different topic. um, but he's able to express how he feels really, really well, and he's like, it just really sucks to have to just wait around and see if like what somebody else is gonna decide on what I get to do, for myself. And it doesn't have anything to do with them. He's like, it's not their business. Why do they get to decide? And I'm like, I don't know, man. It sucks. Everything's on fire. We're having a great time.
I've seen the
we're
meme
talking
pass
about-
around in the last week about like for reproductive rights for the uterus. It was like, so politicians without uteruses get to make rules for those with uteruses. And I would say that translates to the same thing with trans, right? That you've got people who have no idea what that's like, what the experience is, dictating what someone who does live that experience, what they get access to. And I think that's the bigger problem here is like we're not offering equitable access to everyone. And that should be what it is. Whatever care you need, you should get to that level that you need it. And it shouldn't matter that conservative Ken or dip. I was about to say a cuss word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that somebody else gets to make that choice on whether or not your child, or honestly, adults, get the care that they need because they disagree with it. And healthcare was about you get the care that you need, period. It's not supposed to matter what somebody's opinion is. You get the best healthcare that is. And now we have even doctors who are trying to give their opinions on whether or not you get to have care. If their belief system doesn't line up with it, then you've got states that are passing bills that says, oh, by the way, this doctor can choose by their conscience and their biological beliefs and their political beliefs and their religious beliefs whether or not to treat this person. Excuse me? Do no harm. That's the oath of being a doctor. Guys, if you don't know this, I'll just put this in there. Do no harm. That's everybody. If you can't fit that bill, get out.
Uh-oh. Can you hear her anymore?
No.
My earbuds may have died.
Oh no.
Oh, wait. I wasn't talking though. Okay, yeah, no, I can't. I don't know that I can hear it. I hear the squeaker.
Hello?
Okay. Yes. Now I can hear you. I was gonna say I could pick up the earbud.
Okay.
I could pick up the dog squeaking, but I couldn't pick up y'all. Weird. Dr. Diana. Ooh.
Oh, sorry.
Ooh. Dr. Diana was invited to a symposium in Florida to speak. As an affirmed woman, I turned them down. Good for you. Good for you. Your safety
I was
first.
just very excited for you that you were invited, but yeah, forget Florida. Won't step foot in Florida.
Absolutely.
Just won't do
Nope.
it. I mean, I'm not
Nope.
happy that they've now got another hurricane coming to them because I know some wonderful progressive people live in Florida, but like I get that too, because people here, people from outside of this state or even people within the state will be like, stop voting for those people. And I'm like, I don't. What are you talking about? I'm stuck with whoever the person that somebody else wanted. And it's, I'm sure they'd feel the same way if the tables were turned. They'd feel like maybe they're not being represented or heard. It's such a gross place.
But my question is how are they not being? My question is how are they not being listened and heard? Are they getting the care they need?
Probably, but they just don't want anyone else to have it.
No, it's not probably. What I'm saying is they are getting the care that they need, and they're bitching about other people getting care that they need.
Right.
The same.
Why? Because you're still getting the care that you need. What is the problem with someone else having access?
Yeah.
I can't get over that little piece.
Anyway, it's just going to be that kind of day today. I don't know what we're going to do.
These dogs are hangry. We have learned. I'm going to send you a text from now on, like, feed the dogs.
Yep. I usually remember to feed them before this because otherwise it just becomes a whole thing. They get very upset. Like, the big one just tried to kill the little one. Biddy is just in a constant state of rage. Kira's just here to, like, enjoy life.
It's a great time.
It's a good time. Good time. It's a party. It's a party.
It's children.
There was a gal on TikTok who her dog, she got this dog, and I can't remember the whole story now. Anyway, long story short, she takes the dog to the vet for a reason, and it turns out the dog is intersex. And so she was posting about this. She was like, I can't believe it. Like, I have this intersex dog. It's kind of wild. And I can't even tell you how many comments were like, oh, now the dogs have gone woke. And it's like, it's just nature, dude.
It's nature.
It's yes, she wokeified her dog.
Ooh.
And now the dog is a certain way. On a better
Okay, that one I'm much better. I'm way happier about that, Dr. Diana.
Wow.
And Rome.
You need a personal assistant for this.
Right.
Or a photographer.
Videographer?
A dog, 3-legged.
Right.
Let us be that for you.
But that is so awesome, Dr. Diana. I think you should be out there
That's
speaking more.
incredible.
And going over to the UK, because they've got some questionable insight over there. I
Yeah.
would love your expertise to kind of help them
I'd love
out
to see it.
some,
Yeah.
because some of that is bad. Not all of it, but some of it. And I know that there's still, obviously, in the last week, there's still been news about people who are attributing things to transgender people that don't apply in the political sphere. And we'll just say that we all know that we've debunked that here over and over and over.
Over.
Right? And it just goes back into them pushing back on the trans community. And I actually went to after the debate on Tuesday night for the VPs. A group were asked to field some questions with Waltz. And one of the things that I kind of brought up was like, you brought up bodily autonomy, you brought up healthcare, you brought up access. That would have been a great segue into trans rights, being that the moderators decided that even though that is the most talked about issue in this country, as far as legislation being, whether it be pro or whether it be anti in the last 2 years, that not one single question was asked about it. And I was like, and when you brought up bodily autonomy and about holding autonomy for women, that would have been a great moment for you to segue over to trans rights.
Right. But if
and they didn't, and I was
bodily autonomy, then it covers everyone. Let's
right.
cover everyone. You know, whatever you want to do medically. So I think I had a neat moment at work yesterday as I was leaving work, and it reminded me of why we do what we do. My coworker, nice young man, definitely a trumpeter. Period. He just is, but he's a lovely young man. I adore him. I'd break bread with him any day of the week, and anybody can say whatever they want about that. I believe that people are whole people, not just their political views. But I've been pretty open because whenever I first started there was one comment made one of the first days I was there, and it was about Dylan Mulvaney and the Bud Light transgender fiasco. So one of the first days I'm there, two dudes sitting together, coworker that I was telling you about, former coworker who's since left, and they were talking about something about boycotting Bud Light. And I knew right then, you know what? I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to let people know who I am, because I want you to know you're not safe saying certain things around me. We're going to have an issue. You don't have to like it. You can have whatever opinion you want, but I want you to watch your mouth around me. And so I was very, open about it. Hey, I had a trans kid, blah, 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 whatever. So a year's gone by. I've worked there for about 13 months now. And my coworker yesterday said, that his friend from childhood had just come out as trans. And I was like, well, that's okay. All right. What do you think? I mean, that's really wonderful. He felt like he could tell you. That's really special. Or rather, she felt like she could tell you that. That's really special. You must be somebody that she really trusts. And he said, well, I just worry that misgendered. I just worry that he's doing it for attention. He's always had some mental health struggles. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, if you had to live as someone you're not, and you're around, your whole world is this very red state and these very red people, and you know how people are going to act, wouldn't you feel a certain way? Might that cause you some anxiety, some depression, some other issues? And he talked to me for a little bit about it, and we got to say a couple of things. And I ended up saying, well, if your friend needs any resources, maybe groups, clothing, directions to go with doctors, please say something to me. I will definitely help out in any way I can, but I hope that you will just love and support your friend. And he said, yeah, I mean, I definitely, but he ended it with, if I didn't know you, I don't think I would have reacted to his coming out the same way.
No.
Or coming out the same way, forgive me. And it is just these moments of exposure. It is just these moments where we are not afraid to say something, even when it is a little scary. It helps somebody else, and we don't even know that it helps somebody else. We don't know when we're doing it, what our visibility and our responsibility, especially as parents, because it should not be up to my child to be out there marching, advocating, putting himself out there, outing himself. it's not his job to go up against the adults, and it's the adults that are the problem. There's lots of kids who are the problem. You know why they're the problem? Because the adults at home are the problem. It's our job to do that. So anybody listening, it's, if you care at all, it's your job to set a good example. It's your job to not be afraid to talk about it. If I can talk about it in little bitty Oklahoma at my mobile home sales job, where 100% of my clientele leans a certain way, if I can be fearless, and not really fearless, but courageous in that, so can you. We have to talk more about it. We have to not be afraid to talk about this, because these are young people we're talking about. And in this person's case, a grown adult who needed love and support.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Dr. Anna put some stuff up here. Professional note. My professional experience working with parents, I've found that those who reject a prepubescent child or adolescent's incongruent gender identity and the outright rejection of their loved one and possible expulsion from the family and household, typically by only one of the parents, is related more to parents' issues and concerns about the impact the development will have on their personal and professional life and the health and well-being of their child. This is absolutely true. My number one thing that I have to tell parents is this isn't about you.
Yeah.
That's the number one.
With you.
The first thing I have to do is like, this isn't about your political beliefs that you raise them in. It's not about your religious beliefs you raise them in. It's not about your moral beliefs. It's not about you. It's about your kid. And when you can get off your selfish high horse and see your kid, you'll actually start being the parent you should. Now get off that soapbox and go back to what the second comment she said. Cedars-Sinai medical research. Their research teams found that gender incongruence, gender nonconforming behavior, and the onset of gender dysphoria manifest early in prepubescent childhood and can persist for years before an individual will develop the realization of what they're experiencing and pursue counseling or treatment. Their study found that untreated gender dysphoria during prepubescent childhood or adolescence can result in experiencing a poor quality of life for transgender adults. And it goes right back to support
it makes
them.
sense.
It does. I was going to say, it makes sense.
It
I
just
don't
makes all the sense
understand
in the
how
world.
People don't understand it.
Maureen was like, I'm very open. I'm not sure where, I can't remember, Maureen, exactly where you're at. I'm in North Carolina. I'm not open. I'm in a red county. I didn't even talk about this subject until my son A told me that I had permission to, because I was not going to out him. Not to my family members, not to the community. And the fact that we've only gotten redder, now we've got elite MAGA here. We've got rich MAGA here. I don't have just poor people who aren't making good cognitive choices. I have people who really buy into this crap. So honestly, I didn't talk about my kid, and you will never hear me say his name now that he's had a name change. You will never hear it out of my mouth, because that keeps him protected in my state and in my county from, honestly, the people, the hater, the transphobic people who are out there, and they're in droves. Oh, you're in a blue state. Yes, that explains it. No, not here. Not here.
Yeah.
You can already see the division from what the crap is going on with Hurricane Helene.
Yeah, it's weird.
Between the conspiracies on whether Republican people aren't getting the aid that they need. That's bull. And you want to take it to transgender, it gets way worse. This is just about FEMA hurricane aid.
Just a little bit of oppression, please.
Right? Let's see. Okay, so Dr. Diana puts, estrogen receptor pathways in the brain are critical for determining whether the brain will become masculinized or remain in the default female state during the latter part of the third trimester of fetal development. Estrogen receptors A and B, along with an androgen receptor, activate when they bind to ligands and other coactivators. These actions work to regulate the transcription, which we've talked about this. Like, pretty much that has to click on in the very final stages of development, birth development. It doesn't always happen. And so what happens is when you go look at scans of these individuals, typically what their gender identity they identify with, that actually matches that part of their brain, not the sex they were assigned with at birth. And so that's kind of what she was talking about.
More similar to my husband's than it is to mine.
Yep. There. Oh goodness. Okay. There's. She's put like 4 more, and I don't. We're already over time, so I feel
Are
like
we able
that.
to see them after?
Yeah, I'll get on there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
Cool. And I'm gonna get you her podcast going up on there on your phone.
Because those people think that someone else's genuine healthcare needs are wrong, misrepresented, invalid, oppressive. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly, Cooper. And all we're saying is that everybody should be able to get the support that they need. Rosemary's child should be able to get the support they need. And honestly, Rosemary, like if I'm not badly fooled, you started to get pushback yourself at this clinic because you supported your kid, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and that's how it came across to me. I was at my appointment at my doctor, and we were just kind of talking. She was like, "Catch me up. How are things?" And just while kind of mentioning other things that were going on, I was like, "Oh, also, my son is trans," and I was gonna keep going, right? I was gonna like kind of
Right.
just say, "These are, this is just all the light, all the things," you know. And she was just really quick to be like, "Oh, well, he could change his mind. Don't worry. It's okay." And I'm like, I wasn't asking to be comforted. I wasn't asking to be like like you assumed a lot in that situation. Where it brings stress to my life is that I'm worried people aren't going to treat him right. I'm worried people are going to dead name him. I'm worried people are going to
Yep.
misgender him. I'm worried people are going to say that he's not valuable as a human being, right? Like
Well,
these are the
honestly,
things
you're
that
worried
weren't
that they're going to make
validated.
him question like she just made you question.
Exactly. And
And
so
you're
I
not
was
even
like,
the trans person. And you're going, okay, wait a minute. This isn't even about my
yeah,
kid. I came in here to talk to you. This is what you asked me what I'm going through. I'm trying to explain that to you. And you just attack me about how I'm supporting my kid.
right. And it was very much, there was a big opportunity for her to just, she could have easily just said, how is that impacting you? And that would have given me the opportunity to say, "Oh, I don't mean like that. I don't mean that I'm struggling with him
Right.
being trans. I'm struggling with the grown-ups in the world and how they're going to treat him and how they are treating him." Right. So it was just really weird to me. And then she was really quick also to say that that's what she tells all of her trans patients, is that it's never too late to change their mind and they can always change their mind. And it was just, she kept repeating that. And I was like, I just don't feel like that's affirming. I feel like I
I
don't
don't feel
know.
like, no, to work with trans people, I wouldn't feel supported at all with someone who was questioning that in that
Right. And there's
manner.
so many
And
other
then to
ways to
work,
say it. So
I mean,
many.
and you're
Like,
working in a gender clinic, like,
Yeah.
right.
Right.
Like whoever you are at any given moment is okay. We're here for it. We've got you.
Yeah, we've got your
I don't
back.
know. Whatever.
We're on
Okay,
your
whatever,
team.
wherever this path leads, we're on it with you. Is a way
right.
better way, because, but just knowing that it's like some tiny, tiny percentage, I don't know. It just seemed like a really oddball thing to say.
It was
And
very
this is the same
odd
clinic
for
that
sure.
your son goes to, right, Jenny?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
And
is.
he's not had that.
It was a different doctor.
Hmm.
It
Okay.
was a different
Okay.
doctor.
Yeah, we've had
Make sure,
nothing
make
but
sure
good
I'm going to say,
experiences.
make sure he doesn't go to
Yeah.
that one.
No,
Yeah.
he's very happy there. But when you've still got organizations like the one that we were talking about a couple episodes back, where they have dropped the T and it's just the
Right.
LGB, um, gross. Why?
Yeah.
Why? What are you? I don't understand. And I
I
think that
mean,
it goes
I've
kind of
gotten,
back to
I've
what
gotten
Rosemary was saying
pushback from
earlier.
that with people in
Are they
Pride Week last
afraid?
year.
Are they afraid that if if trans people get attention and rights, that it's going to set theirs back? I understand fear. I understand fear very well. So I realize that most people in very reactive situations, or whenever they're taking hard stances, it's a lot of time based on fear. And I get that, and I have compassion for that. But you got to get to where you address, well, what is that fear? And let's talk it out.
Right.
And because otherwise, now you're contributing to the harm of a community. Well, your community used to be harmed and you didn't like that. So why are we passing that down? Like, we're literally supposed to be making it easier for every generation that comes after us.
Yeah.
Isn't that the point?
Well, I mean, it's the
Right.
same concept of like, oh, well, your student loans can't be forgiven because I had to pay mine back. So you have to pay yours back too, right? You don't get a break. You don't
Right.
get things easier
Right.
because I had to suffer. So do you.
So it's weird.
It's because if I can take suffering off of the younger generation, I'll do it in a heartbeat, right? Like
Right. I mean, that's what I
that's
thought
the
we were
whole
supposed to be doing
point.
as community, was like make it better for our children. So why are we trying to
I
make
thought
it
that was always
harder?
the point.
It's the
Right.
entire point, but there's so much selfishness and there's so much, but what about me? But what about me? And
Well, I'll tell
the
you,
thing is, what about you? You already have all your rights.
Congratulations.
right?
What else do you want?
Right? You can get the care that you need. Dr. Diana put up here, and I will say this part, because we talked about this a little bit last year. So there was a survey given out to a bunch of different medical schools asking them what different areas that it looked at gender affirming care, right? And there were like 16 different specific areas that they had to answer. Were they training their med students on? Unfortunately, the result from this school or this survey is learning that medical schools are producing physicians with little to no knowledge or any level of competency in working with transgender, gender diverse individuals, or the LGBT community. While the survey did not include graduate or postgraduate schools for counselors, social workers, psychologists, gender diversity, and trans knowledge, there she is. Quite all right. But the gender diversity, transgender knowledge, and experience within the behavioral healthcare profession has been found to be severely lacking. And what she had put up here, of the 16 specific areas addressed by the survey, only 8% of the schools addressed all 16 subject areas. And this is what I talked about. We weren't taught this in nursing school. I knew doctors that weren't taught this. I knew radiologists that weren't taught this. I knew CNAs. Pharmacists, like it didn't matter the level of healthcare that you were in. We weren't being taught this. We weren't taught about how to uphold their autonomy. We weren't taught about how to support them. And if the medical professionals aren't being taught, how do they give affirming care? Like it goes bigger. It goes bigger than just. It goes bigger than just whether or not their beliefs support this. They're not being trained.
Sure. And so then you're relying on the only people who are going to give a damn, or who are going to try, and who are going to seek out that knowledge, or people who already believe in that, which is great. I'm glad they exist. But at that, collegiate, university, PhD, whatever it is level, at that training level, and with continuing education, bringing it up to people who may not initially have come in with that feeling about these people will, we have a shot at changing some minds. We have a shot of at least teaching something and changing outcomes for patients, which really should be the
Cooper was talking Oregon is queer wise or decent queer wise too. And I'll agree. Like I know two different people, one who's done transition surgery out of Oregon, and then another one, some queer couples that are out of Oregon, and they really love the state. Like they are treated very fairly there. In fact, one of those couples was like, if my kid has to leave North Carolina, like Oregon, this couple is one of the couples that are like, he can come here.
I love that. I love that. You know what? No, I have to be in warmth. I need summers. I don't want 10 inches of snow. I don't want rain all the time. I'm not into that. So I'm
like, I'll take the biggest
in this hellscape of good climate and terrible politics. This is the bad place.
Right. And North Carolina's the same way. North Carolina's the same way.
Climate.
Here are some more healthcare resources, and like every single one of these comments, Rosemary, Jenny can take you to, because Dr. Diana's leaving so much information, it's not even giving me the full comment on StreamYard to read off. So there's plenty of stuff there. Portland is, Maureen, you're right. Portland is a major LGBT community. A lot of your major cities out there are like that. Tends to be where you're going to find more access. It's where you're going to find people who are more understanding. In North Carolina,
nobody should have to travel or move or think about that. Nobody should have to do that. You should have access and care wherever you are.
Right.
Regardless, it should not be demographically based.
Right. I'm already a single mom. I don't need the expenses of having to drive 2 states away.
Right.
Well, I mean that's
like divorce your Republican husband, and I'm like, and go.
Her son's in Oregon.
2-person house. This is a 2-income household.
It's a 3-income life right now.
Where do you want me to? Okay, cash at me, baby.
Right.
Send me some money.
I mean,
I'll move wherever you think I should.
That's kind of where we're at too. Maureen's son lives in Oregon, or maybe it sounds like Portland. So yeah, I do feel like, unfortunately, that's where some of us are at. Like in our states, Jenny, your state, my state, we're looking at our kids depending on who comes into power in politics.
Right.
We could look at our kids
here. It's not going to matter here. It does not matter who gets elected. You could elect Barney the president. It will not matter in the state of Oklahoma. The state of Oklahoma is doing what it's going to do, and it's not going to stop doing it. It's
I saw some stuff this week. I saw some stuff this week out of there that I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's a party.
It just keeps going. It just keeps going, right? I think
time.
We're hoping that because our Trumpian candidate got into so much hot water. I'm kind of hoping it helps turn some areas blue,
Yeah.
but the hurricane came in and now there's all kinds of political theater around,
Oh, I'm
they're not
sorry
getting
about
their
that.
supplies.
I actually created that.
The same powers that you
With my
turned your
magical
kid
powers.
trans.
With my yes. Yep. My trans changing powers, my weather powers.
Yes.
I did
We're
that.
coming
Sorry.
for your kids
Whoops.
next. Don't worry.
Wow.
Turn them
Yeah,
trans.
no, well, that's what they think. That's what they think,
I think also
They do
unfortunately.
think that.
I
That's
think
And
crazy.
it's just like
I
that.
can't
We
get my
did
kid to
it.
clean his room.
Right.
I definitely couldn't get him to be trans if he didn't want to be.
I
Like
couldn't get mine to
can't get him
turn in his homework. Like,
Right.
I mean, literally
What are you talking about?
his teachers in high school would call me up and be like, okay, I have been begging for this one thing from your kid for weeks. And I know, and he keeps telling me it's not done yet because my kid is a perfectionist. And so it wouldn't be ready yet. So it wasn't up to his snuff. It wasn't up to his standards yet. And so the teacher was like, and I'm just calling to let you know that I finally walked over to his book bag and I just took the assignment out and I'm grading it as is. And I was just like, you got to do what you got to do. I love the kid, but
Drastic
sometimes you have to,
measures. Just do it.
that she just wants to write a score down. Like, give her the paper. What is wrong with this? And she was just like, yeah, your kid really is. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And you think I force him to do something? Well, let me tell you, if you met my kid, nobody convinced my oldest kid to do jack.
No.
That has been from day one. Day one. You could not tell him anything. Anything. My ex-husband said he was the stubbornest person he knew until he met me. So he came from two really stubborn people. And I can tell you, my mom is stubborn as hell. My daddy was stubborn as hell. Their parents, stubborn as hell. This kid has got a whole lineage of stubbornness, and nobody's going to tell him how he's going to live his life. My mother was trying to go back into that crap again today. And I railed at her for like 45 minutes. Like, I don't know what the hell you think is going to happen in North Carolina for a trans person. Do you really think he can go out there and find a job in Johnston County? Well, no, but Wake County is much safer. He doesn't have a license. How is he getting there? Have you figured this out for him yet? You got all the plans.
But then we're mad at people for using social systems. We're mad at people for using the systems that are in place that might be able to help them with food costs. Like, so I don't understand. The point is they want them to just go back to being what they think they should be. Then you can go get a job and you can have everything you want.
Yeah.
They gatekeep, if that's even, it's like a paywall, I guess. It's like some kind of paywall. Like you can have all the things that everybody else has if you just do it this way.
Conform.
Just conform. Just be who you're not. Just hate yourself. Just think about
the rest of us.
like the fucking rest of us. And which is it? What do you want? What do you want? You want people to have jobs and you want them to be part of society, functional member of society. Hallie wants to do that. Hallie just wants a job. She wants to pay for her own apartment. But my God, the poor kid, I was worried about her the whole time going in for job interviews, just like, because she,
what kind of discrimination,
like,
what kind of,
and I'm like, oh my God. And like, it was in me to think, if she would just, and it crossed my mind. It did not come out of my mouth, but it crossed my mind. Can't you just do it this way just so you can get this job? Well, what is that? No, because then she's going to go to work and be herself, and it's going to come down the pipe either way. I don't know. We've gone way over as usual because that's what we do here on the TransParents show.
That's any of my shows. Like, let's be honest.
We'll just keep
if you come to any of my audio rooms, you come to any of my lives, we don't finish in that.
Yeah.
We don't finish.
Yeah.
We just don't. Okay. To be continued. Again.
TBC.
Right. And Rosemary, like, it was delightful to have you on the last 2 weeks. And yeah, like, we don't mind having you back. Dr. Diana, like, I'm pretty sure you probably could have a very interesting conversation with Dr. Diana.
I was supposed to call her, actually, and I forgot. Really sorry, Dr. Diana.
Look, she sent me an email 2 weeks ago that I haven't gotten to. I haven't gotten to a lot of emails. Like, I told Jenny and Rosemary right before the show, I've been battling a fever, like, all weekend. And yeah, like, I do what I got to do, and then I shut down. I'm not pouring out more than I got right now.
Yeah.
And Dr. Diana is very understanding And she's
We love
also one of
her.
the most like go-getter people that, I mean,
Yes.
she sets a schedule, gets it done, tackles it.
Yeah.
And
Same. I
need
would
I
do
that.
that.
I'm 47 and I have not figured that. Yeah,
Girl, I
no, I'm a,
finally bit the bullet and got on like this website by Winona, which will do hormone replacement, like estrogen, progesterone, and DHEA. And I'm like, fuck it, I got to do this. I need whatever. I feel like that is kind of the defining thing, because I feel like whenever I was younger and had more estrogen, that I was more productive. So we're gonna see if that works. And if it doesn't, we're just gonna say, forget it. This is just who I am.
you could also try black cohosh. You could also try black
I've been
cohosh.
looking at that.
I've been on black cohosh for like a decade almost.
Yeah. Like I want it. I want like the hormones. I want the stuff.
I'm interested. She's not.
I have way too much cancer in my family, so I'm not for the hormones. Like, I mean, literally, like I want to be as far away from it. I want it as natural. And black cohosh is supposed to support your. Honestly, it's supposed to help balance like your hormonal differences as you go into like premenopause and menopause.
I need them.
I don't think so.
I don't have any to balance.
I don't have any. I'm sure I do. I'm sure I still have some, but I want more.
All right. Maureen said Dr. D is amazing. She is.
She is amazing.
She also said, Jenny, call me.
Okay, baby.
And Dr. D's like, her life's evolution took place in 1990, and January will be 35 years for her. 35? So, I mean, I bring her on. Honestly, like to me, it's kind of like, here's your proof. You keep saying it's brand new. Here's your proof.
Yeah.
What do you want? And yeah, it all goes back into we should just be supportive of people, whoever they want to be, right? It's not. I know this is new for some people, but just take it with a grain of salt. It's been here. You may not have known someone. That's okay. We're a bigger population now.
It's like when Americans discovered sushi. At first we were like, oh no, it's fish. And now anybody who's ever had sushi, if you're a remotely interesting person, you're like, this is amazing.
Right? Give me more sushi.
It always existed. We just maybe didn't know. And now we know we can all enjoy the sushi.
Absolutely.
Right?
Just
right?
like that.
All right.
Just like that.
You just have to open your mind.
Right? Okay. So it was wonderful to have you back. And like I said, we're going to be bringing Rosemary back. But we're 20. Are we 20 minutes over again? I think we're 20 minutes over again. That's all right. Oh, well. This will be split up in 2 parts. Once we go over, I have to split up in 2 parts on TikTok. So I always worry that people are going to like catch the first part and then not catch the second part.
Well,
but whatever. If they're interested, they'll come back for the second part.
They'll figure it out. If
right?
Not,
And one more thing before we close. If y'all have not checked out, and this is just for the audience, if you have not checked out and you have Netflix, please go watch Will and Harper. It is making the rounds.
Have a little watch moment. Let's do it this week.
Yeah, there are lots of stories that are out there. They've been doing lots of interviews talking about it, and I think the most interesting comment that I've seen so far that came from Will Ferrell is when they decided to do this, they did it with the intent to bring it out and publish it before the election.
I love that.
And it was specifically for this reason.
Absolutely not. But that's okay. It's out there.
But it helps. Every little bit helps, and that's the point. That's the point.
Someone else's mother's gonna watch it and be like,
right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
maybe I shouldn't judge so hard. Maybe. Oh, is that what's going on with my grandkid? Well, I haven't heard from them in 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
This is the question, folks.
I'm gonna feed you. My dogs are starving.
Okay.
They're dying right now.
We're going to go. Thank you guys for being here. Her dogs are starving. I'm getting kind of hangry myself. So for that being said, goodbye, everybody. We will catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.